In the first part of this video series on OnBox Python, I demonstrated how easy it is to deploy an LXC container on a CSR 1000V. Since then, I've been getting asked a lot of questions about how we would use that specific tool in order to be able to make our lives as network engineers simpler. But before we can do that, I need to talk about some of the tools that are baked into the guest shell application, and we're going to do that starting right now. I have SSH'd into CSR2. From CSR2, I want to enter the guest shell. I will do so by typing guest shell run bash. Now, from the console of my guest shell Linux container, I can leverage the capability of a command called do host. Now, do host allows me to be able to place commands inside of quotations. As an example, show IP interface brief. If I press enter, this is going to provide the results of that specific show command. I could do things like do host, and we could say something like show IP OSPF neighbors. And again, it's going to provide that output. Now, at first blush, this may not seem like a major deal. When we first start looking at this, it's basically not that different from being able to just log into the CSR 1000V itself and execute commands. But understand that I could use do host, and I could run commands against and gather information from the host in a specific instance, and I could do something like write a bash shell script that would allow me to be able to perform some rudimentary networking functionality on the device as is. However, when it really boils down to it, bash shell is not itemized on the CCIE Enterprise Infrastructure Blueprint. However, Python is. So that's where we're going to turn our attention to next, how we would implement Python, and we're going to talk about one of the more powerful tools that is baked into the guest shell, and that tool is called CLI. To leverage the capability of OnBox Python, what we're going to do, first of all, is we're going to start Python. I'm going to do so by typing Python 3. That's going to place me inside of the Python interpreter. Now I want to leverage the CLI library, or sometimes called the CLI module. To do that, I'm going to import CLI. From here, I can use the command CLI dot, and if I rapidly hit tab twice, what it's going to do is it's going to give me the possible permutations of commands that I can use. Now, in this video, we are going to focus on a handful of these. We are going to focus on CLI and CLIP. Now, the first thing I want everybody to understand is that these are modules that we can leverage inside of Python. We've imported it, so now I can actually use these. But again, one of the problems that we run into is going to be, how do we leverage the syntax, especially if we're not very familiar with Python? Well, the good news is that we have tools. As an example, if I were to type CLI dot and do my tabs, it's going to give me a listing of the options that I could use. So let's go ahead and focus on CLI.CLI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that command, CLI.CLI, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to type help, and I'm going to put CLI.CLI inside of parentheses. I'm going to hit enter, and what that's going to do is it's going to give me the permutations and the usage and the syntax associated with the command. It is very, very important that everyone who is preparing for the Enterprise Infrastructure Exam, as it relates to automation, understands how to get help when we need it. We're not always going to know exactly what to do in every possible circumstance. So finding out where you can get support in the system that you're working with is going to be very, very important. So what we see right now is if I just hit Q, it's going to say I can use this command, CLI, and what it does is it is a single or batched set of commands that I can run. If I want to send a batch of commands, in other words, more than one command that I want to have executed in a single operation, I need to separate those with a space and a semicolon. Now, what we'll notice here is that it's going to tell me that when I use this command, I am going to use something called an assignment operator. You notice that I have output equals. Now, that's saying that the results of the command are actually going to be stored as part of a variable. And in this specific instance, it's going to generate a string. So if we were to look at this from the purposes of implementation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply copy this command into the interpreter. Now, I don't want you to be surprised because this is not going to work, and we need to talk about why. It's going to give me an error message. When I hit enter, it's going to come back and it's going to tell me the error type is a module type, and it says the object is not callable. Now, the reason that this is happening is that when I typed import, if I go up and I look at my import CLI, I imported the entire module. Now, when I look at it from the perspective of CLI dot, and I do that rapid succession of tab to complete, what you're going to see here is it's actually giving me the structure. So the root module that I imported was CLI, and inside of that root module, I have a sub module called CLI. Just like if you look here, I have a root module of CLI, and I have a sub module of what we'd refer to as CLIP or clip. So what I need to do is I'm going to have to tell the system how to find or where to find CLI by typing CLI.CLI. And what's going to happen now is I'm going to hit enter, and it's not going to give me an error message. But what I want you to note is that what it actually did is it executed that show version command and assigned the output to that variable of output. So if I type print output, what we're going to find is it's going to print the results of that show command. And like I said, if I wanted to run more than one command, what I would do is I would separate them with a space and a semicolon, and then I would type in the next command that I might want to run, like show IP interface brief. And if I run it, now what it's going to do is it's going to produce the same results as before, because again, it's running that command on the iOS XE device and assigning it to the variable of output. So now if I type print output, what we're going to see is I am going to now see the results of both commands. So here is the output of the show IP interface brief command, and obviously the command above us is going to be the output for the show version. Now, this is, again, going to prove to be very handy to me, but one of the things that I also may want to do is I might not want to go through all of these operations. So as an example, I might not want to implement this idea of assigning the output of these products to the variable of output. What I may choose to do is I may choose to just print these out. So as an example, if I got rid of the assignment operator, and instead of doing CLI, I'm going to do CLI, CLIP, which is going to be a print function. When I execute this, what it's going to do is it's just going to print the results on the screen. There was no secondary operation. Now, I want to make something clear. If I come over here and I say help, and I say CLI.CLI, and I hit enter, notice it's telling me that I can execute a single command, and it's giving me the operations here where I can implement this. I can do configuration commands. I can do show commands. I can even execute a ping. So if I came over here and said, instead of these commands, let's go ahead and just print out the results here. And what I'll do is I'll say show ping, and I'm going to ping the value of 8.8.8.8, which should be my DNS server. So let's see if that result works the way I would expect it to. So as we can see, this gives me the capability of being able to execute a large array of commands to include configuration commands and show commands from this guest shell image. Now, it should not take much to excite your imagination when you start thinking about some of the possible things that can be done in the context of this guest shell operation. And the fact that I can tie this directly to things like embedded event manager, whereby if I have something take place in my environment where a specific event transpires, I want to initiate a particular shell. So what I want to talk about in the next video is going to be how I can leverage this to do things like turn on interfaces, turn off interfaces, do sanity checks with regard to reachability, generate a way of being able to capture the configuration. So if I'm logged in as a particular user and a particular modification gets placed in to a device, I may want to be able to capture that. So I want to keep a record, a log of what takes place on the host system, and I can do that using things like Embedded Event Manager. If you found this video helpful in any way, please take the time to click the like button and let me know that this is working for you. I would like to do other videos in this series, and if you guys have any suggestions as to what you would like to see covered, please go ahead and mention it in the comments below. Until then, I will see you guys hopefully in another video. Take care, keep safe, and keep studying.